All right, so we're taking a look at Chapter 30, Section 1, Preview, Pre-reading. What's the main idea here? Long-term social unrest in Russia exploded in revolution. First communist government. Why does it matter? The Communist Party controlled Russia till 1991, Mr. Cullinan. Some of the terms. We talked about the proletariat yesterday. I mentioned Lenin. And the rest will be new. So Bolsheviks, Rasputin, provisional government, this word Soviet, the Communist Party, and Joseph Stalin. I also mentioned him yesterday. So, taking a look, we got the intro. The czars resist change. What do we call it when somebody resists change? We call it conservatism. Then we got the czars continue autocratic rule. Hopefully you remember that rule or that word autocratic from yesterday. Then we got a picture of the good old Alexander III. Russia will industrialize. We kind of covered that in the Industrial Revolution, so there's hopefully you remember a lot. Revolutionary movement grows. Here's that word proletariat. The Bolsheviks. They're going to have Lenin. Crisis at home and abroad. Then you got the Russo-Japanese War. Got a little insert here about Lenin. So Bloody Sunday, revolution in 1905. So hopefully you recognize that that's before World War I. Then we got World War I. Puts a kind of final blow. I'm going to tell you it's to the Tsar. Then we have something called the March Revolution. The Tsar will step down. They create a provisional government. This word Soviets. You got this guy Lenin. Then we're going to talk about the Bolshevik Revolution. Provisional government topples, falls over. The Bolsheviks come to power. You see a civil war, the Reds versus the Whites. Here's a pretty good chart you might want to copy into your notes. Comparing these revolutions to others. Lenin will restore order, which is economic policy. Then you got, and this kind of covers some of what I talked about yesterday, so it's worth rereading. Or reading. Political reforms, Stalin becomes dictator. So, going to the top. Here are your objectives. So you should have in your page both of these things open. You don't necessarily have to copy these into your notes, as I've said before, but it's probably not a bad idea. But for the sake of time, let's launch into the reading. So setting the stage. Mr. Tisdale, do you have your book open? All right, you want to read the paragraph setting the stage?
Yeah. Setting the stage. The Russian Revolution was like a firecracker with a very long fuse. The explosion came in 1917, yet the fuse had been burning for nearly a century. The cruel oppressive rule of the most 19th century czars caused widespread social unrest in Russia. Army officers revolted in 1825. Secret revolutionary group plotted to overthrow the government. In 1881, revolutionaries, angry over the slow pace of political change, assassinated the reform-minded Tsar, Alexander Jr. Russia was heading towards the full-scale revolution.
Excellent. So what did I jot down in my outline, which I typed, DJ? I know you love it. Russia had a repressive feudal system well into the 19th century. Repressive means to hold down. Today, maybe I'm being a little repressive so that we can get some of this in, right? Army officers had rebelled in 1825, so this goes back a good 100 years. 50 years after that, or 60 years after that, revolutionary assassinated Tsar Alexander II. I'm going to add, and I'm going to put it in green because it shows I understand. He actually wanted to make some of the reforms. He'd actually been reform-minded. All right? So I added up over here, too. This is a summary, so you don't have to write this part down. In the past, I wrote this down, and then yesterday I gave it as its own whole lesson. Right? So, what else? Czars resist change. 1881, Alexander III succeeded his father, Alexander II, and halted all reforms. Like his grandfather, Nicholas I, Alexander III clung to the principles of autocracy. Right? So there had been some reforms. This guy comes in and clings to the idea of autocracy, which is a form of government which had total power. Anyone who questioned absolute authority of the Tsar, worshipped outside the Russian Orthodox Church, or spoke a language other than Russian was labeled dangerous. So, in my outline, and you should be doing yours on paper, "The Tsars Resist Change" is the subtitle. You should write down a definition of autocracy. I gave one yesterday, so that you could just do a quick couple bullet points. How did he implement it? He's going to, by using his government to control populism. There's censorship. That's what they're talking about here, right? If you spoke a different language or wrote in another language. Where's my eraser? Oh, there it is. Right? So that's a kind of censorship. I guess I filled in a little bit of extra given my knowledge. But he had secret police. I talked about that yesterday. He used a lot of imprisonment and exile. And I have some stuff in gray there that we don't necessarily need now. All right, Mr. Mockery, why don't you read the section, Tsars Continue Autocratic Rule. I'll start us out while you look. Got it?
Revolutionaries, Alexander III used harsh measures. He imposed strict censorship codes on published materials and written documents, including private letters. His secret police carefully watched both secondary schools and universities. Teachers had to send detailed reports on every student. Political prisoners were sent to Siberia, a remote region of eastern Russia. To establish a uniform Russian culture, Alexander III oppressed other national groups within Russia. He made Russian the official language of the empire and forbade the use of minority languages such as Polish in schools. Alexander made Jews the target of persecution. A wave of programs organized violence against Jews broke out in many parts of Russia. Police and soldiers stood by and watched Russian forces produce local stores and synagogues. When Nicholas II became Tsar in 1894, he continued the tradition of Russian autocracy. Unfortunately, it blinded him to the changes.
Excellent. Thank you. So, in my outline over here, I wrote down the idea or the subtitle, Tsars Continue Autocratic Rule. I don't know why it's not going. But anyway, Tsars Continue Autocratic Rule. Describe Alexander III's rule. The book uses the phrase harsh measures. And that's probably where I should have put these notes. There we go. Actually, I wanted to say that. So these notes I had over here probably better fit down below. And it's not working.
Which one's above? The one's above?
Yep.
Oh.
And now the other ones are in the way. I'm going to do that. That's the beauty of doing notes on here when you guys graduate to it. But you should be doing this on paper. Okay. All right, maybe it's not that awesome. Anyways, so I'm going to pause it here. Is one from yesterday, or there'll be another one for section 2 about Stalin, but I'm going to do some alternate readings in the next couple days. So you guys are going to